Today I'm building a 100% historically accurate LEGO World War II Battle of Stalingrad mock. And with that, let me introduce you to Sergeant Yakov Pavlov. Now we'll be diving into the history throughout this video, but let's start at the very beginning. This is the base plate I'm going to be using for the build. And let's add Sergeant Pavlov to the front of the build for a size comparison. Now as I make progress with the real LEGO build behind me, I'll also be referencing a virtual LEGO build in LEGO Studio 2.0 to help explain my decision. However, before we start building, there's two main things we need to consider. Number one, we need to make sure the minifigure fits inside the building, and then second, we need to make sure that the building fits onto the base plate. Now, after taking everything into consideration, this is what the foundation of Pavlov's house is going to look like. You can see there's a rough layout of the rooms, and you can kind of see where it's actually going to go, but before we place it onto the build, let's first get the rest of the foundations in, which is what this is over here. And there we go, that is the end result. Now it doesn't take a genius to guess where the building's gonna go. Yes, it's in this big gap in the middle. Notice that the foundations are 3 plates deep, and second, the walls are 2 studs thick. That will be very important later on, because we're aiming for this LEGO World War II mock to be 100% historically accurate. Now, you'll notice I've used tan as my primary building material, so to explain why I've chosen to do that, we first need a bit of context. Taking a look at this before and after aerial reconnaissance photography should hopefully illustrate how intense the fighting was. Almost every building was flattened, but somehow against all odds, Pavlov and his men managed to hold their ground. Now after the war was over, Pavlov's house was the first building in Stalingrad that actually got rebuilt and then later turned into a monument. Now all of that history and context was simply to explain why I chose tan as my primary building material, because as you can see, the building was and still is tan. So we're starting to learn about Sergeant Pavlov. So let me give you a quick rundown, just a preview of what this is going to end up being. This one over here. I've just realized actually, if I build this all the way up, I'll be behind it. Well, regardless, let's carry on. Next one, let's get the next one on. There's a hair. This isn't a Daily Bricks build. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that's what we're working with at the moment. You can see it's going to be quite large, and actually I'll probably end up disappearing behind Pavlov's house. And remember, there's also a roof, be it a pretty broken one that goes on top of that. So of course I'm gonna take that off because that's just a preview. As you can see, well, there's no walls, is there? I mean, to be fair, the building itself, if you look at the picture, it doesn't have many walls left, but still I should probably put them in if I can. So for the time being, I'm going to take this off. Now that we're down to this level here, again, I will be taking this off. This is where you should pay particular attention to the reason that we've done 3 plates thick. The foundation, each floor is 3 plates thick. The reason that is because this is going to be a destroyed buildings, and these bits will be falling off. And so to get that kind of, I don't know, like a decaying or broken, falling apart aesthetic, having multiple layers just gives you a bit more flexibility. So 3 layers of plates will allow us to get a much cleaner finish there. Okay, so we're back again to just this foundation here, and so what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of get the rest of this terrain built in so that we got, you know, it doesn't look so grey and boring. Now in the preparation for this video, knowing that I was going to be doing a LEGO Stalingrad mock, I ordered a bunch of white parts, and we've also got a lot of white plates as well. As I was soon to learn, Pavlov's capture and then defense of what is now known as Pavlov's house actually took place on, there's some differing views, either the 25th or 27th of September, long before any snow had fallen. And so all of those white parts I ordered, none of them are getting used. So good stuff there, great stuff. So yes, I've had to order even more parts. So that's good. You guys are always asking me where I get my LEGO accessories from. Well, the answer is brickrepublic.com. Brick Republic is the official reseller for brick arms, Sidan, and more. If you want to level up your LEGO mocs, then this is the place to start. Here's just a small collection of their weapons. And no, it's not just World War I and World War II, they've got Star Wars and much, much more. For example, these overmolded weapons are incredibly good value for money, and they've even got a selection of fantastic helmets and webbing to bring your LEGO minifigures to life. Better yet, brickrepublic.com was kind enough to sponsor this video and provide me with an affiliate link. Click the link in the pinned comment and the video description and use code SCOTSPLASTIC at checkout. Thanks again to brickrepublic.com. Moving now back to the virtual mock in LEGO Studio 2. 2.0, you can see I'm doing a gradual incremental process, and step 3 was deciding how tall each of the floors needs to be. This is 6 bricks, which is going to be the height of each of the floors. Now, this just makes sense. If it was 1 brick smaller, then the ceiling would be basically just above his head. And if it was 1 brick taller, then the overall build, because we got 4 floors, the overall build would end up being way too tall. So the proportions are just right when we have 6 bricks high. Now, as for the surrounding area of Pavlov's house, it's also really important that we get that right too. I've got a bunch of images. In fact, I've got, as far as I can tell, every single image or footage of the building after the war, after the battle, that the internet has to offer. If you have anything else, please send it to me. I would love to see it, because I've looked, all right? What I will be doing later is I will be using aerial reconnaissance photography to figure out where the craters actually were surrounding the immediate area, because of course they had been digging minefields in front, they'd put up barbed wire, there were a bunch of fortifications surrounding this area, but to the best of my knowledge, as far as I can tell, they did not have any trenches in front or beside of the building. The only trench they had, imagine the building continues down here, the trench they had was in the rear towards the Russian lines. So let's talk numbers. When Junior Sergeant Pavlov was given the order to storm and capture what was then known as the lighthouse, he was in command of a platoon, so approximately 30 men. Now, counting all of the Soviet Lego minifigures that I have, of course there's only 1 Yakov Pavlov, there's also 2 Soviet shock troopers and 9 Soviet infantry. We've also got 6 fake Lego minifigures. And on this other historical Lego World War II mock, I have another 8 minifigures. Yes, 8. Just counting, just to be sure. Now, taking all of that together and adding it up, we get 26 Soviet Lego minifigures, which is just 4 short of Pavlov's platoon of 30. However, I just received a delivery from United Bricks with 4 new minifigures. Oh, and by the way, I should also mention there's an entire German army, which we will explore later in the video. But in this minifigure haul, I've got 2 brand new assault engineers, 1 Soviet paratrooper, and a Soviet body, which will be our final infantryman. Which means we finally have 30 Lego minifigures to match the 30 men in Pavlov's platoon. Except absolutely none of that matters whatsoever, because from Pavlov's 30 men, 4 survive. 4. Though Pavlov did receive reinforcements through a trench they dug at the rear, and to be honest, this building would have been crawling with Soviet conscripts throughout the 58 days they held it for. Yes, 58 days. Whilst being attacked from this side, and from the front. Probably why only 4 of them survived. So because Pavlov was reinforced after a couple of days, we will still make use of the rest of these minifigures in this build. However, I'm not going to use the 8 minifigures from this Lego mock, because this is also a historical World War II Lego build. I don't really want to destroy it. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it. It's a good video. Do it. Now, this is where things get a bit more interesting. Many history buffs will have heard of the famous Soviet sniper Vasily Zaitsev. I've definitely pronounced that wrong. This man was credited with killing 225 enemy soldiers, and if you haven't heard of him, but you have watched the film Enemy at the Gates, it's that guy. That's him. Well, it's not him, it's an actor playing him. Well, as it turns out, one of the residents in Pavlov's house was that very same Vasily Zaitsev, and I've pronounced it, and I know I'm getting it wrong, bear with me. He was in Pavlov's house, and this is where he got many of his 225 kills. Now, coming back over here and taking a look at the new United Bricks Soviet paratrooper that I've just picked up, I think he would make a perfect Soviet sniper that can go in Pavlov's house. So we'll give him a scoped Mosin Nagant, like so. As we now have our second named historical figure from the Battle of Stalingrad, I feel it's only appropriate to put him next to Yakov Pavlov at the front. And of course, there will be more named historical figures to come. I hope I'm not going too heavy on the history. I hope there's still some actual Lego content. So for those of you who are wanting to see some Lego building taking place in this Lego mock building video, I've got good news. Not only have I been building the floors like you've already seen, but I've also started work on the roof supports as well as the roof itself. So you'll notice that on each of the floors, these bits here, this is where the balcony will actually go. However, on the top floor, there is no balcony. This is the top floor piece here. Now, these are the roof supports which go on top of that roof, and as you might expect, they slot in like so. Again, of course, this is not final. Let's say, for example, one goes there, and the other one again again, not finished. Let's put the other one back there. Now, if I put that to the side, hopefully you'll kind of roughly see what we're working with. Now, as well as those roof supports, I've also done one side of the roof, one side of the tiled roof. Now, you might immediately notice that this roof is not entirely destroyed, and it's also a bit too large to actually fit onto it. Bear in mind, remember that we're going to do the ruined, we're going to do the ruined, the damage detailing at the end, and this is supposed to have like multiple layers of like wood over it as well, so it's still very much a work in progress, as you can see from the other side over here, which is literally falling apart. For now though, I'm sure you'll agree that it's about time to start building up.
24 hours later.
Welcome back. These are all of the new Lego parts that I've bought, including these ones here for Pavlov's house. For the most part, what you're looking at is a collection of olive plates and also tan plates, because this is going to be a rather large build. Also included in those parts are a bunch of balconies, doors, and windows, which should help nail the historical accuracy of this build. And so, as soon as I tidy up this mess that I've just made, the building will begin. Unfortunately, during the cleanup, we have taken a casualty. Our Soviet sniper was the first man to die in Stalingrad. Let's get him back on his little pedestal over here. There we go. This is the first floor of Pavlov's house. Very quick pickup test. Kind of awkward to hold. Pickup test successful. Now, I actually can't remember whether or not I've shown you this in the video already, but this is Pavlov's house that I built in Bricklink Studio 2.0. As you can see, on the original, I'd put a door below the balcony doors on the ground floor. However, on further inspection and with a bit more research, I don't actually think that door on the ground floor exists, which is why when we come around and take a look down here, you can see it's now, in fact, 3 windows. And that's because the actual main entrance door to this building is further down here, which is past what we're actually going to be building in this Lego Moc. Now, I want to show you this in a bit closer detail because I'm going to be making this roof, this ceiling, the second floor ceiling, detachable. I'm going to be building every level of Pavlov's house as a modular Lego Moc, which means I can remove every single floor whenever I want to so that we can access the interior, because this is not just going to be an exterior build. We're going to populate the entire inside of the building. Now, if you've been watching my Lego shorts on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, then you'll already know that I've been collecting a bunch of Lego minifigures, accessories, weapons, helmets for this Lego Moc, specifically winter camouflaged German minifigures like this one here. Also, highly detailed winter camouflaged helmets, and even white Kar 98s. All of which can be added to my existing collection of camouflaged winter German World War II minifigures. However, it should be noted that when I ordered all of those camouflaged winter German minifigures, I didn't realize that the defense of Pavlov's house in fact started in late September, long before any snow had ever fallen in Stalingrad, which, by the way, is exactly why I ordered all of these olive parts. And I mean, I didn't order the newspaper, but that came with the parts. It's a bonus. So we've got olive parts, but what that does mean is that every single one of these winter camouflaged minifigures, and yes, all of the new minifigures that I purchased, all of the winter-themed Soviet helmets, and the many camouflaged rifles are all entirely useless. And so with that being said, what do I actually have for this build? Populating Pavlov's house will not only be Pavlov and Zaitsev, but also all of these Soviet soldiers. And of course, attacking Pavlov's house will be all of these German soldiers, including 19 riflemen, 6 infantry with MP40s, 2 infantry with MG42s, 3 upgraded minifigures from a previous build, and yes, General Burnface and you, the viewer from the previous video. Now, there's a bunch of German minifigures that I don't think I can use in this video. For example, these minifigures have STG-44 magazine pouches, the 44 in STG-44 meaning 1944, well after the Battle of Stalingrad was already over, and then there's a selection of camouflaged uniforms, some of which I need to do a bit more research on, and some of them are .44, again 1944 camouflage after the Stalingrad battle had concluded. However, of course, before I can place any minifigures in and around this Pavlov's house build, I first need to, well, actually create the building. So let me talk you through every single step of Pavlov's house and how I built it. Step 1 was deciding on the proportions of the build. Step 2 was when I realized I needed to expand it to fill a 32 by 32 base plate. Step 3, I added initial doorways, walls, and a minifigure for scale. Step 4, I developed a 3-plate thick floor, which will be important later on. Step 5, I added another floor. Step 6, yet another floor. And step 7, I added the top floor. In step 8, I added some roof detailing as well as the attic space. Step 9, I added the roofing structure complete with tiles. Step 10, I began adding doorways, windows, and some drainage. Step 11, I completed the balconies on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors. Step 12 was where I decided on the size of the base plate and also templated the ruined front section of the building. Step 13, I created a dedicated base plate for Pavlov's house. And then step 14 is comprised of building up the foundations and the flooring supports. Step 15 is where the two parts were then joined together. And then finally, step 16 is where I realized that this battle didn't take place during winter. Now, I'm sure that you'll agree that this build needs to be a bit more colorful, which is exactly why we're about to start placing down all of plates. So let's get to it. Now this is starting to look a bit more like it. Cross-referencing every image of Pavlov's house at my disposal and literally all of the aerial reconnaissance photography in existence, these dark tan plates mark out the footpath surrounding the actual building itself. Now the olive plates surrounding that will also be getting raised later on, because if we take a look at the reference image once again, the area surrounding Pavlov's house was actually built up and the building itself sat down into a bit of a recession. It should also be noted that I've been referencing a bunch of different existing models of Pavlov's house to try and extract more detail, though if I'm being honest, some of these are missing quite a lot of detail. This is the most accurate model by far, but even here they've included a door on the bottom floor which simply doesn't exist. That being said, it's important to acknowledge that there's also going to be some limitations with my model, and probably the most immediate one that I recognize is the fact that my entire house, my entire model is made from dark tan and tan bricks, whereas the real Pavlov's house had some white detailing and texturing around the building. Which, by the way, is exactly why I'm building every single floor of Pavlov's house as a modular Lego build. That way, I can take it apart whenever I want to add or remove details as I continue my research. And it also means that I can come back and I can add the rubble detailing to the sides, because as you can see, it's perfectly square and we're missing this ruined area down here. It means I can come back and I can do the broken floors and I can create the rubble and the destruction later on at any point during the build. So it's probably about time that we now build the second floor. As it turns out, I was wrong. And yes, this is also wrong. However, I'm not really bothered that I've found out I'm wrong, because we're going for a historically accurate build, so every time I correct a mistake, we get one step closer to absolute accuracy. As it turns out, Pavlov's house only had balconies on the west-facing side and did not have balconies on the east-facing side. So to make that clear, it means that this is the west-facing side, and yes, this did have balconies. However, on the other side, this is the east-facing side and did not. Now, another thing that I've learned about the east-facing side is that this did actually have a door at the bottom. This balcony's gone, this balcony's gone. It had a door at the bottom, and then it had large vertical windows going all the way up the build. It's also worth noting that there was no drainage on the east-facing side either. So first thing that I'm going to do is take off the balcony on the east-facing side. I'll just spin this around. This should be a relatively quick fix, to be honest. Watch it just not be. Oh, look at that. This is how easy was that. Unbelievably easy. Wow, that is actually almost criminal how easy that was. Is it going to be just as easy for this side here? It is as well, actually, isn't it? Look at this. Or is it? Yes. There we go. Now, again, what we need to do is we need to make sure we turn this window here is being turned into a door. The windows above this door actually go between each of the floors, so there's a much cleaner gap. I guess what that means in reality is that there was a staircase in here as well. Now, we're going to deal with the staircase later, because that's internal stuff that we can do later on, but for the time being, let's just implement as many of those changes as we can before we progress with the build. And whilst I corrected the mistake, I realized that I haven't even shown you the balconies that I built. I just did it in a time lapse. For the balconies, we're using these pearl grey fences, and all I've actually done is just line up quite a few of them together, and it makes for pretty much a perfect balcony. Now, some of you may have already noticed, but literally none of the windows none of the windows fit the window frames, and even though we've got these lovely white doors, well, as you can kind of see, none of the doors arrived, so that's good. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that you just didn't notice that and that you're completely unaware of it. There is, however, one thing that I can do, and that is drainage. Exciting, I know. There we go. Yes, it's that time again. It's the pickup test. This is starting to really come together now. You can see left side's going to have the extra windows and the door, and the right side's going to have the balconies and the drainage. Overall, we are starting to make some pretty big progress. So I've received another shipment of Lego weapons, helmets, accessories, and more. Both for the Russian army, as well as the German army. For example, this Soviet infantry officer cap, an NKVD officer cap, and this incredibly detailed SSH-40 Soviet helmet. Also, new webbing, a grenade, and an anti-tank rifle, which Sergeant Yakov Pavlov will be putting to good use. For the Germans, we have a tank commander's headgear, a Panzerfaust, and some really nice Kar 98Ks and MP40s. So let's assemble all of that and see what we get. So let's take a look at the results. General Burnface has now been demoted to Tank Commander Burnface, and you, the viewer, might be the only person that actually wanted to be in Stalingrad. These two will of course be operating a trusty Panzer III. Now that's not all, because Pavlov's also received some new equipment, and so has our famous Soviet sniper. With that building spree done, this is where Pavlov's house is currently at. It should now be obvious that the next step that we have to embark on is creating the roof, which we've already templated down here, and this can be slotted on top. Again, even the roof is going to be modular in this Pavlov's house build. However, it doesn't stop there, because I've already created these roof supports, which can be slotted in like so. Not quite like so. That's the front one. We've also got a second one over here, which obviously just goes behind. And now that we've got those wall supports in, the next step obviously is to get the roofing on. And I'll just spin it around so you can see roughly what that design will look like, and we'll have that on both sides.
8 hours later.
Before I complete the build, it's time for another pickup test. Please don't break. So hopefully this gives you some idea about how big and actually pretty heavy this build is. To add the finishing touches, I disassembled Pavlov's house, then began adding the detailing and rubble one floor at a time. Specifically, I'm looking to break up the blocky nature of the house and make the front of the building look like it's actually been blown up. After that, I started to add a bit of depth and detail to the surrounding terrain to help bring it to life. And this is the result. As you can see, the walls have now all been broken. Each floor of Pavlov's house is now also caving in, and I even came up with a, to be honest, not a very nice fix, but a fix nonetheless for these large windows. Now there's a few things that we still need to do, namely we need to add the rubble, destroy the roof a bit, and then at long last add the minifigures. Let's start with the rubble. I'm just gonna get bits of the building, and like we're really just gonna genuinely just slap it all in down here. It shouldn't look pretty. Then I'm gonna get these bad boys down here. This is how we're gonna do this, okay? I'm not gonna be carefully placing rubble. I'm going to be throwing it in. Literally throwing it in. Let's have a few of these. Let's have a few of these like bigger bricks like this. You know what? That actually, genuinely, this might be actually working quite well. Let's see if the next bit works quite as well. Right, let's get this detailing done, shall we? Maybe that's not quite worked as well as I was. Not quite what I was aiming for. Oh, Jesus. The building really is falling apart now. Yeah, let's be maybe a bit more tactful this time. How to build Lego 101 with Scots plastic. Just literally hit it. Now with the roof detailing completed and the rubble placed, now let's do the minifigures, and then we're pretty much there. So, of course, the main man, the international man of mystery, Yakov, Sergeant Yakov Pavlov, to be more precise. Let's get him. He's got to be in like a prime time position, so let's get him lobbing a grenade out of the top of the building. Now, Zaitsev, I still probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm gonna get him in the top of the building.
2 hours later.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pavlov's house during the Battle of Stalingrad. Personally, I think I've done a very, very good job, if I don't say so myself. We can see we have Yakov Pavlov himself throwing a grenade out of the top window. We've also got Zaitsev, the sniper, up at the top here. We've got a bunch of fighting as the Germans try their very best to surround Pavlov's house. Well, they've got it surrounded, but can they get inside? Again, we've got a bunch of ruined detail here on the walls, with a bunch of Soviets doing their absolute best to man the defenses and to keep the Germans out of this building and save the Soviet Union from being pushed into the river Volga. What do you think? How have I done? I'm genuinely very happy with this, and you can tell me if you think this. In fact, you know what? Rate it out of 10. Subscribe to the Scots Plastic Lego channel so you don't miss any more videos like this. The next one will be a World War II D-Day video.